You're listening to C-Suite Unplugged, a podcast by the Business Council of Alberta, where the province's top executives share their career story, what's happening at their companies, and speak candidly about the most pressing business issues. I'm your host, Adam Legge, and in each episode, I sit down with Alberta's leading CEOs, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders to explore their path to the top and what they're focused on right now. Enjoy the show. Well, Cathy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here, Adam.
Well, excited to have this conversation. I've known you and your dad for many, many years, so looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely.
Cathy, you come from a family deeply rooted in Calgary's business community, and can you tell us about your early life and maybe how that family business and the entrepreneurship in your family shaped your journey?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and for as long as I can, I don't remember a time when RGO was not a part of our lives. My dad started RGO in 1966. So I was a small child then. I have a lot of memories of my childhood of doing things that were all in one way or another related to RGO, whether it be meeting clients for lunch on a Saturday when they had children. And so then, my dad was always really great at, integrating every part of his life into his business. We'd meet with clients. We'd do a lot of social activities with clients. If it wasn't with the clients on the weekends off, when we would go up to the office. And my sister and I always loved to, hang out at the office. I think all the EAs at the time were working on typewriters would say, "Oh, Ross's girls were up here this weekend because all the margins are reset and everything's, not the way we left on Friday." So
Yeah.
I think that watching our father be in the business community, we were always really proud of him. Even when we were young, we kind of thought that he knew everything because he knew everybody, even at an early age. He'd been born in Calgary. My sister and I are second generation Calgarians, and we always felt very proud of that. But beyond that, having been born in a community where your parents have built a business, there's just a lot of reach and just being part of things. And then, of course, Ross was always a huge champion of the community. What was going on, he would always be saying, "Oh, we've got to go check this out on the weekends." So yeah, I think you were at my dad's celebration of life. And I think I told the story about the first year that Spruce Meadows was going. And of course, we went to Spruce Meadows. And my sister and I thought it was so funny because my dad was a bit of a city slicker, and we parked the car in a field, and he ripped his pants going through the barbed wire fence just to get to the exhibit. Not because he was that crazy about horses, but he just wanted to see everything that was going on. So that's my early memories of Ross and, going to the Wrangler games before, the Wranglers came back. And so whatever was going on in the community, he was game and wanted to see. His huge curiosity was something that propelled him really to the last days of his life. He was just always very interested in people and in things and in activities and, of course, anything that made Alberta better.
Yeah, he was a tremendous, tremendous individual. I was honored to know him and call him an advisor and mentor for sure. So, Cathy, besides playing with the settings on typewriters, what was your first actual job that earned you a paycheck?
I worked since I was 14 years old. And so it's like, okay, what was my first real job? In the summers and when I was 14, I worked on the elevators at the Banff Springs when they were manual.
Oh, fun.
I had to take the early shift, the 7 to 3 p.m. shift, because my parents didn't want me working the night shift at the Banff Springs, which was,
That's fair.
when I look back on that, it's fair enough. And then a little later, when I graduated from high school that summer, I got a job at the Royal Bank. And I think that they hired me under duress because I needed a job. We're a huge account of the Royal Bank, and
Yeah.
and so somehow I found myself there for a summer job, and I worked there all through university, and it was just a really amazing experience. Not because it was always fun or that I loved the work, but it taught me a lot. I really have a belief that, everything prepares you for the future. I had no idea what I'd end up doing for a career. Quite frankly, I was planning to go to U of A. I took the home economics program with a major in clothing and textiles and a minor in business. The only reason why I went there again was because I wanted to be an interior designer, which would have been, pretty much in line with what was happening at RGO at the time.
Right.
Ross thought that was too far away for me to go to school because that would have either been Winnipeg or Toronto.
Okay.
And so he really thought that it would be better if I went to U of A and took that degree first. And then he said, if you come back and you still want to be a designer, then you can go do that after. But the rest is history. I graduated from that program, had a great 4 years in Edmonton. And then I came back and I actually applied for a leadership management program at the Royal Bank.
Mm.
And that was just at the beginning of or in the middle of the national energy
Energy program. Yep. Yeah. The
program that
80s. Yeah.
you've heard about your career over and over and over.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
so oddly enough, even though I'd had that 4 years of experience, they said, we're only going to hire students who have a Bachelor of Commerce and you have a Bachelor of Science. And
Mm.
so that was pretty disappointing because I
Mhm.
didn't have my sights set on coming to RGO at that point. My dad's father, I'm not sure if you ever met him, Adam. He lived till he was 96, but
No,
he
I
was
didn't.
really active in our lives. And
Mhm.
I played golf with him all summer. He funded me for as much as he could so I could hang out with him. And and August 15th, my dad said, okay, it's time for you to get a job. You need to get to work. There was an opportunity to work in the drapery division of RGO. And he said to me, I think we can make some money in this drapery division. So why don't you come here and see what you can learn and what you think? So I started
Mhm.
August the 15th. I still have that paycheck. He didn't
Oh,
want
neat.
he didn't want me to cash it. He said, someday you'll be really proud of that. When he first hired me, I was like, he set me up. He said, okay, I'm gonna pay $1,800 a month. I said, are you kidding me, Dad? I said, I was making more than that at the Royal Bank. And as you would expect, he said to me, you're not worth anything. You don't know anything yet.
Mm.
And I was like, great.
It was a hard
And
truth.
so, it was a
Yeah.
hard truth. And you know how Ross was. He could be
Yeah,
really direct and to the point.
for sure.
I was living at home, so I didn't have a lot of expenses. He just had too much leverage at that point. Anyhow, I took the job and no one really at RGO knew that business. And so it was a really tough 3 years to get started. It was
Mhm.
there in a very loose format. And honestly, Adam, I did everything. I learned it all by trial and error, and I learned everything the hard way. And there were a few times where I wanted to quit. I declared that this wasn't for me. And he said to me, well, you can quit, but I don't know what else you're going to go do. So if you got a better plan, go for it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of a better plan at that point. So we got into it. We bid for the Olympics and we ended up securing the automated window shades for the Olympic skating oval through a
Oh,
photo album, basically, because we
wow.
partnered with an entrepreneur that was going to build the product.
Mhm.
And like I look back on those days and I think, wow, what a chance they took. We did have to sign a contract that we would be available 24/7 during the Olympics in case anything happened with the automated shades because they were, adjusting the light level on the light shelf, if
Yep.
you remember the skating oval.
Yep. Yep.
And so that job put us on the map. So I'd started at RGO in 83. That was in 1988. Yeah, I was just really incredibly fortunate to be able to get into a job. I'd say it was a job at that point and didn't have a ton of pressure on me apart from just, I just kept showing up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Ross was one of those kind of champions. He'd never kick you when you were down. Those days I never got too full of myself because I was making so many mistakes that it wasn't a problem. But if it was particularly a tough time, his EQ was amazing. So he
Yeah.
could, even though you'd think he wasn't getting it, or lots of times people would think he didn't know what was going on in the room, but he could read a room and he could read me. So, if it was a really down in the dumps, then he'd come there and pick you up and shake you off. But for the most part, let me get my lumps so I would learn.
Well, those are the best lessons, right? That we learn by stumbling and what have you.
Yeah,
So yeah, totally,
yeah.
totally. Obviously, Ross, a huge figure in your career and growth and
Mhm.
development. Any others that you had as mentors or advisors along the way?
Yeah, early on in my career, we had a partner, and he started out being basically a subcontractor to us. His name was Fritz Nice, and he was a Dutch fellow. And in his family in Holland, in the Netherlands, they had had a curtain wall manufacturing company, and he had immigrated to Canada to start a shade business. So he started working for one of our key suppliers. And so we were buying product and he was installing, and he was very, very innovative, and, he could MacGyver anything. We always had a strategy. If I could sell it, he could build it.
Ah, nice.
And so we became partners in his business called Nice End Shading. And I would say that, of specific things to the window covering industry, he taught me the most. He spent hours with me teaching me, and some of it was just on the job learning. We started out just, Ross gave him some capital just to keep him floating. And then as you would expect, he would grow. We needed a little bit more. And before we knew it, we were 50-50 partners.
Oh, neat.
And we had that product exclusively in Alberta for, oh my gosh, like 25 years. In the end, we sold out to Hunter Douglas, if that name means anything.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
huge name in
yeah.
window coverings, yeah.
He taught me a ton, and he was like a big brother. We're still in touch. He's retired on the island now and spends his winters in Mexico. I have a debt of gratitude to him because he really taught me the ins and outs of the technical side of the business. I wouldn't say Dave, my husband, was a mentor as much as just a massive champion and just a steady force in my life that, none of us do these big jobs in isolation.
Yeah.
He had his own career that he was building, but he was incredibly supportive of mine. So I've been really, really fortunate. And then in these later years, my dad's knows some pretty incredible people, but Don Taylor's been a great mentor to me and a great champion, especially the last few years. It's always somebody that I could count on to, just vet some ideas or get calibrated. Sometimes when you work really closely with the parent, it can be difficult in the fact that you just need some perspective. Because the only perspective I had for decades was the Ross Glen School of Business. And so, there's lots of ways to do things. And I will say to you, like most of it, I completely prescribe to this day. They're foundational things that really, when I was thinking of preparing for our conversation today, I really thought, a lot of this is really basic, but I think that Ross just had the discipline and the focus to stay true to those core values.
Yeah. What are some of those, Cathy? Like maybe give us a sense of some of those
Well,
principles and things your dad.
some of them you would know to the core. When I say them to you, it won't be a surprise at all. But, in no particular order. One was he, just always to do what was best for the business. He would say that, if we do what's best for the business, it will work out for us in the end as well. Incredibly disciplined. Also, that fiscal discipline. He was a bit complicated in some ways because I found it confusing a bit growing up because, when we were in the early days, we used to tease him. He'd be flying first class. He always drove a beautiful car. He was always well dressed. We always ate in nice restaurants.
Yep.
But then he had this other side of him that was frugal, not cheap, but just frugal. You didn't waste things. He used to say, we buy the best quality you can buy because only the rich can afford to buy twice.
Yeah.
And so, he just had this sense of being really fiscally prudent and never spending more than what you had.
Yeah.
And so I would say the core values of reinvesting in the business, investing in people. The later years, these last few years, one of the things he said to me was that if he had to do it again, he'd even invest more in the people.
Oh, wow.
And so he believed in people. He also talked a lot about win-win and about integrity. And he didn't talk about those things so much in their verbiage, but he just led by example. Things always had to be fair. It'd be funny, like we'd let's say we'd win a big opportunity, and then you go, well, make sure it was fair. Like it's got to be a win-win.
Right.
And also one of the things that I really think that I hope that I've gained from him is his ability to look at the big picture. We had to always think about what was best for the customer. That didn't always mean that it was best for RGO. That meant maybe that we didn't get that deal that time, but then the customer would come back.
Yeah.
I really love that because I think that, we want customers for life.
Agreed.
And it's really different when you're in a business that you own and your family has your name to it. It's about your brand and your reputation. So you want things to be a success. And so that core values of just giving back, being involved, doing what you say you're going to do, reinvest in your business, be fair. They're not that genius in my mind.
No, they're just good old fashioned,
Good old-fashioned. Yeah,
ethical,
yeah,
good business
yeah.
acumen
And be
principles.
respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, even after my dad's not here, like, I've had so many raw stories, and there are people that come up to me who I didn't know, and they tell me things that my dad had done, and that really warms my heart. Just some of the one fellow said to me, "Did you know that your dad did this and this and this for me?" And I'm like, I mean, for the first 30 years of my career, you wouldn't believe this, but I rarely had lunch with my dad, maybe once a year,
Oh,
because
is that
he was
right? Really? Okay.
yeah, he was flying in the market. I was doing my thing in window coverings. He was a big act to follow, so I kinda just stayed behind the scenes and did my thing.
Yeah.
He did his thing, and it was really just these last 10 years that we spent a lot of time together, which was
Yeah.
an absolute gift.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, well, maybe it was my fault because I've had lunch with him at Glen and Red Lobster and places
Yeah,
like that. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
he was,
Well, he was a guy's guy, so he would wanna have lunch with you. I mean, my
yeah,
sister and
yeah,
I always joke that he got 2 girls, and isn't that hilarious that he ended up with us too?
yeah. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
he was a gem.
yeah.
Cathy, what was that transition like when you took over the business? How did you manage that? How did you and your dad know when the time was right? And
Mhm.
how did that go? Because I mean, that's a big shadow to kind of
Yeah.
take over from,
Mhm,
and just
mhm.
curious how you kind of found that space that became Cathy as head of the company versus
Mhm.
Ross.
I think there was kinda 2 pieces to that. The one piece is that when we made the transition, he was 79, if you can believe that,
Oh
78 or
wow.
79, and we'd been talking for a while. He was always kind of, someone that kinda didn't like to make too many hard and fast plans, because the opportunist in him wanted to be available for, be able to pivot. And that was his entrepreneurial spirit. That was one of his superpowers. And yet sometimes we became more mature and much more became at stake, I kept saying to Ross, like, we don't want to be doing this in a crisis. So if it's me that you want to step up and do this, we need to start making some of those plans. So
Hmm.
at our 50th year in business, that seemed like a good time to do that. Ross is also very pragmatic. So, as much as he hated to kind of step off to the side a little bit, he knew that if he wanted RGO to continue and be successful and strong, he knew he needed to do that.
Hmm.
He was
Hmm. Hmm.
logical and bright, and he knew that. I think too, interesting, that gender piece of having a daughter versus a son. Maybe there's a little more of a gentle transition with that. Potentially, I don't
Interesting.
know. I don't have any other experience to
Yeah,
say
true. Yeah, yeah,
what
true
that
enough.
would be. I will tell you that the first year was a bit bumpy. The energy price was down big time. The oil price was down. It was in 2016.
Yeah.
One of our partners was about to transition out in a couple years. He didn't understand that. He didn't understand why that individual would want to leave so soon.
Mm.
They were only going to be 50, and that was just unfathomable to him. And
Still a
so
youngster. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. And what
Yeah,
would they do? What would they
exactly.
possibly do? And so him and I had a few bumps along the way in how we were thinking to lead, but it didn't take very long. I mean, ultimately, he wanted me to be successful, and he knew that he needed to support that. And so, there were a couple times I just had to hold up the mirror and go, hey, how we interacted in that meeting wasn't cool. But my dad had a big heart. And I know he wanted me to be successful. And we were kindred spirits in so many ways.
Hmm.
I mean, Dave always jokes that I'm a little mini him. In some ways I am, in some ways I'm not. Secondly, I think the transition went quite well because I've been in the business already for 30 years.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was coming in and hadn't proven myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had a deep connection to a lot of the people. So they respected me. They understood, what we were trying to do. I think probably for many it was a relief because, I mean, you just need to do math. Anything can happen. Anything can happen anytime, but things start to change. When we did this little official handing over, I said, I'll do my best not to screw it up. I'll try not to spend more money than we make, and I'll try to be here every day like you are. So, trying to inject some humor into that.
Yeah.
And then as his health started to, be a bit more of a challenge, I think it was a relief because then he knew, he had a front line to me. He was pleased with the way things were going and we were navigating things.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a good, as you say, initially bumpy, but a successful
Yeah.
transition
Yeah, we knew
over
where we
many years.
wanted
Yeah.
to end up.
Yeah.
So again, remember I said he had an idea of the big picture.
Yep.
I'm really proud of the fact that, and I'm happy for him that, he was able to leave and he didn't have to sell his business.
Yeah.
He got to live his life exactly how he wanted to, right till the end. And, not many people get that privilege.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. Probably what a perfect outcome for him to have it in your hands going forward, right?
Yeah. And, I think his legacy will continue. He'll be known as a community builder and also a
Hmm.
contributor.
Yeah.
He wasn't one to hang on to everything. He was more than willing to share. He said to me, "I've got more money than I'll ever have. Than I need to know to spend." Like he was willing to invest that back in the community because he knew the importance of that, and I couldn't agree with him more. And I
Yeah.
think that'll be his legacy of how he invested in the people too. If it is a different town than it was.
Yeah. Yeah, he sure invested in the people and in the community. Yeah, I just think of all the things he was involved with, and some with his name on them and some just quietly, right? So, yeah, beautiful
And he
man.
wasn't a big board guy, right? He didn't.
Yep.
That's the other thing. He knew his superpower. Like he would say, he was on the board at the chamber long before you got there, but
Yeah.
he'd said, that's probably not my best place to contribute. And I thought that was pretty cool of him to recognize that in himself.
Hmm. Hmm.
He said I could do some things more from the back bench.
Yeah,
And I love that he didn't have to have his ego in that. I think there's some learning to be had from that.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. Just be a soft contributor in ways that can also shape and be impactful, right? So, yeah. Yeah. Cathy, for you personally, outside of work, what are your hobbies and interests? What are you passionate about? What takes up your time when you're not at the office?
Well, I have to say a lot of my time is around all things RGO. The fruits don't fall too far from the tree. Obviously, really passionate about my family. I'm really thrilled that I get to work here with Dave. And then, of course, our niece is in the furniture side of our business,
Nice.
doing really well. She's been here going on 8 years.
Excellent.
And our daughter is working in our technology business. So she's been here 5 years. And of course, she got married during COVID, and her and her husband have a little boy. So we're loving being grandparents.
Nice. That's
And
fun.
then we are guardians of our 14-year-old nephew. So I figure that's keeping us young too. Lots of family time. Love to travel when we can. We haven't been able to travel too much the last few years, but love to travel. And then anything in the creative arts. I love like art. I'm a quilter.
Nice.
That whole design side of life I really love. So I always think I'm so blessed to be able to be doing even my daily life what I love because
Hmm.
it's really great to be up here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
between work and family and grandchildren and
Yeah.
quilting, yeah, that keeps you busy for sure. That keeps
Yeah,
you
and the
busy.
hockey, we take in a lot of the sports, particularly the hockey.
Yeah.
Not Ross was a diehard football fan. I haven't been as much football this year, but they're really excited to see the Flames get back on ice. Actually, we're going tonight,
Oh, very good.
the first preseason game. So
Very good. Well, let's hope they've got a good roster and can
yeah.
push their way to the playoffs this year. So, Cathy, let's switch kind of over to RGO. RGO has shifted substantially from selling typewriters and then just office furniture to now you're designing complete environments.
Hmm.
Maybe tell our listeners about the modern RGO of 2025, and all that the company does today.
Well, one of our strategies that has been, again, a foundational part of RGO was to be diversified. That became really, really important with the economy that we've been in for the last 60 years. It's no secret that the Alberta economy can be lumpy at times. Being able to be involved in more than one thing has really been a mainstay for RGO. Our core business is still the furniture business. I don't say office furniture anymore because we do just all commercial furniture from
Mm,
healthcare, seniors living, corporate, education, K to 12, post-secondary,
yeah.
all of that. And everything that's overlaid with that would be all the automation that's included in that now. There's so much technology embedded into all of these furniture tools. You could see that there's just a natural progression. Then we have a window covering side of our business, both residential but more commercial. Really proud of the fact that there's not too many buildings that are in this area that we haven't done the window coverings for as a base building. 15 years ago, we jumped back into the flooring business. We were in it years ago when I started at RGO, then we exited, and then we got back in.
Mhm.
And then, of course, our technology business, which was kind of it used to be office equipment, and that was what was our foundation. Ross
Mhm.
bought a little equipment company and then got the Steelcase dealerships. So I think we really just want to be in the whole space of building place. I think that's what keeps me motivated and makes me, just enthusiastic to meet the day and feel optimistic about where we are in this time, is that place is important. We've learned that through the pandemic.
Mhm.
We just know how important it is for humans to come together. We can help create environments where people can live, grow, learn, heal, like have community time, all of that. So
Mhm.
that's the big picture for me. We can play in all of those areas. Of course, our perfect opportunities are when we get into a project where we can do things from start to finish. So, for example, on the new BMO Center, RGO was fortunate enough to do the window coverings and the flooring. And we did that through one channel, which was the construction channel through PCL. And then we were able to do the FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment from our RGO product side. So there's nothing in that building that we haven't supplied.
Oh,
That,
wow.
if you dump the building upside down, everything that went in there, we were part of the team that procured it and put it in place. And so we joke that we did the forks to forklifts. And so that was an amazing job. And then, of course, we've done a lot of the technology, like the printers on prem there, and then all the services that are around that, Adam, that help support that. So the operational piece, as you would expect, some of those goods were shipped direct to site, and our teams would meet those big trucks and unload everything and get it put in,
Mhm.
receive it, inspect it, and then, get it stored where it needs to be. And then in some cases where we needed to make a quick pivot for storage for a couple months, we were able to offer that service. So it was this end to end where we were on the team, we were in early, and we were able to just take away all the pressure points. So,
Mhm.
2 months before the 6,500 chairs, banquet chairs came, and they said, you know what, we're not going to be able to receive them in the building. What are we going to do? We can't take them on-prem here. We don't really wanna keep them in a C can. I was like, "It's not a problem. Bring them up to RGO. We have a 130,000 square foot warehouse. Just bring them up. We'll load them in, keep them in their stillage carts, and when you're ready to take them back, we'll bring them back down."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's meeting our clients where they're at on logistics. And, we have products, but we also have that whole service, that day two engagement, and then all along the supply chain. As you would expect with BMO, there were a lot of mitigation strategies that were considered because we had to be able to go live, and there were so many things going on, like pandemic issues, geopolitical issues.
Mhm.
Some of this product was coming offshore. Then at the last minute there was a pending rail strike,
Right.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'd sign a contract that those goods would be here and
Yeah.
Stampede would be able to go that year. And proud to say that there was nothing there that didn't happen based on the plan. Didn't mean that there was some tension in the middle, but,
Yeah.
we had a great team with Stantec and the Stampede and, of course, CMLC and then all the contractors. Everyone was just super committed to getting that over the finish line.
Mhm. Mhm. Kathy, keeping on the theme of sort of place, as you say, the evolving nature of place. Obviously, the Business Council of Alberta represents business and lots of evolving trends in the workplace. We've seen the shift from the work from home during the pandemic and now return to work. And I think the dynamics of place and space in the office and workplaces has changed. Obviously, there are people who are continuing to want to work from home and employers wanting to bring them back in the office. But tell us, what is the state of the modern workplace? And I would think of more from a kind of a corporate setting, an office environment. What are companies wanting? What are they looking for? What are people wanting and employees wanting? What are you seeing going into modern office environments that may be different than, say, years past?
Well, I think that one of the things that we're seeing a big shift toward is we have a saying around here that we say, well, you've got to earn the commute. So people got pretty comfortable working remote or working in wherever they were from home per
Hmm.
se.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it has to be worth the drive in. So I think the spaces need to be creative. I think they need to be comfortable. They need to be well tooled with the appropriate technology. And I think there needs to be lots of spaces for collaboration so that people can come together and connect and talk and, meet. I mean, just to come into the office to jump onto Teams again, that's just not going to work. Like people need to be able to interact, have an exchange of ideas, really be able to work together.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I think is here to stay, it's not all bad, is that in general, the workplace is just a bit more flexible. The days are gone where, not that that was never an issue in our environment because of what we do and, a highly active sales force. So they're in and out a lot. But in other kinds of environment, I think everyone can agree that some heads down work can be done at home. But if we want to build teams, it's very difficult to do if everybody's working remote. There's too much intentionality where,
Mhm.
if you're in a work environment, you just can have those casual conversations. Also, from a leadership point of view, it's very hard to know how people are doing
Yep.
behind a screen and then
Totally.
to build those relationships. I mean, I feel very fortunate that, I know a lot of people. You and I could easily have managed through pandemic because we know each other.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if I'm just meeting you for the first time this way, it's more difficult.
Yeah.
So I think the future is, interesting, collaborative, comfortable spaces with flexibility. And I'm not saying foosball tables and all that kind of thing. I'm just saying people come to work, make sure the tools are good.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some relatively new office environments that are incorporating everything from kind of, living walls and more
Yeah.
greenery, and then also just some really
Mhm.
beautiful kind of breakaway space,
Yeah.
people to kind of sit and meet and work on a bit of a project, in a kind of almost little booth environments and really
Exactly. We have a lot of those
seating.
here.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
cool. They're really cool.
And everything's enabled with technology in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
So small spaces, big spaces, private spaces.
Hmm.
I think that's here to stay. And that's really great. Like, I think a lot of that's quite exciting.
Yeah. Are
And
you seeing?
anything that's just supporting humans, right?
Yeah. Are you seeing kind of the typical floor plan shrink based on?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make room for the pods, I'm sitting in a space right now where it's a 3-person space that people can just touch down in. There's a big screen here and then they can pop in and out. It's quite soundproof.
Hmm.
Does that resonate with what you're seeing, what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I go and visit some of the members and some of the more new office spaces that they have, yeah,
Mhm.
they're much, smaller offices, more collaboration, meeting
Mhm.
space, highly technology enabled. I think everybody's trying to entice people back to the office. I've also seen some pretty cool office spaces with great beer fridges and all those sorts of things,
Oh, yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's I just think people enjoy a nice collaborative, modern, fresh environment. I think that's a nice way to, as you say, to earn the commute.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Going forward with RGO, innovation's been a big part of the company. What are you looking at from an innovation standpoint? And, what do you see as, some early stages of the next growth and expansion and evolution of RGO?
Well, I think we'll always continue to look for new products that are highly flexible. What's interesting when you look at some of the products that we are showing now, they're very mobile. And as I said, everything's enabled with technology in one way or another. Some of these things that we're showing in the showroom look pretty leading edge. I think anything that helps speed up the installation process or
Mm-hmm.
even further up the construction process. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm sitting in a what we call an air touch pod, and this space is made up of walls and glass, but it's sitting on the carpet. There's no difference between the carpet in this room or outside because it's just plopped on this carpet
Oh,
and it
interesting.
could move anywhere. If we learned anything through the pandemic is that ability to expand and contract in
Mm-hmm.
every way of your business. There's lots, people, space, tools, all of that. And so I think we'll continue to see that innovation on how to get things made quicker, faster, and still meet the challenges of the workplace. I think that's the biggest part of it. And then staying competitive. The other thing is, we've been sourcing products from all over the world. I think there's a really renewed focus on the whole supply chain and maybe making it not quite so complicated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, what does that supply chain look like? And what's the plan for, being able to access things so that people aren't not doing everything in customization? And
Mm,
there's so
right.
much choice that you can
Yeah.
do that. I'm working on a project for now with a client right now. Often designers will want to have something that's quite bespoke. They want it to be unique. They don't want anyone else to have it.
Yes.
The reality is that could still be done, but not from custom made componentry, because
Right.
that's just adding time and complication into things.
Yeah.
And so I think we're seeing more of that. Hey, show us solutions that we know we can get, but that we're not going to, once we're done our core project, we're going to have to wait and wait and wait, and it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And I think people, like clients, are being more fiscally responsible of this expanding and contracting their people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Cathy, I know you touched on it earlier, two key aspects for RGO. One is people and the other is community.
Mhm.
You've been named one of Canada's best managed companies, as well as one of the best workplaces in Alberta for mental health and for giving back. Why is that important for you and RGO?
We are a service business. And so we're only as good as our people. A lot of products are getting commoditized. I always say that, the differentiator for RGO is our knowledge of our people and their skill and their expertise and the way that they feel supported. So, not everything goes perfectly all the time. We all know that. But I want our clients to know that we're not walking away from anything. And the same thing for our people. They need to feel like they're in a safe environment where they can learn and grow and build a life. I used to feel really sad when people would leave RGO over the years, and in 60 years, I haven't been here for all of them, but for a chunk of them. And I had to change my perspective on that, Adam, in the fact that I have two real strong passions of I love the sale, I love the business side of things because that's the metric you build, and I'm a builder. But
Mm-hmm.
then I also love to see people grow. I'm just trusting that if whoever comes through our doors, I want them, if they stay for a long time, which many of them do, and that's amazing. But some move on for lots of different reasons, not because RGO is bad, but it's just life changes, things happen. I hope they built a better life. I hope they've learned some skills. I hope their family's in a better position. And I hope that they felt that it was a safe place to learn and grow because
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty tough out there. We're not perfect, but we're private, and that's another thing that we've been really fortunate. There's been a few times when we would have been a public company, some of the decisions that I brought forth to Ross to implement, or if he went public, they say, well, that really isn't a good business decision right now.
Right.
This was a
Yeah.
people decision. I feel really quite passionate about the mental health piece because if we want to have success in Alberta and we want to build a strong economy, our people, we need to be well. That's a
Totally.
foundational piece, right?
Yep.
And our
Yep.
families need to be strong, whatever that looks like. And I'm here to tell you that my family's morphed into something I didn't expect. I didn't expect to be parenting a 14-year-old at this stage of my life, but I am, and I love him to bits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it is. And so lots of families have very unique configurations. That's really the foundation. So that's why it's important to give back. That's one of the goals, like the three pillars are health, education, and community.
Yeah.
Really important. I want our people, we have a real range of people that we hire here, right? From the loading dock out to the people in the field. They need to be well supported. They all need to be earning a working wage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be doing philanthropy in the community and then not taking care of our own. I'm just, and Ross was passionate about that too. And that's in our core.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a wonderful approach, and those pillars round out the company to be something of significance and meaning to your family, to employees, to customers, to the community. So, bravo to you on that approach. As we move to close, Cathy, we like to close on a note of optimism. What makes you optimistic these days? Could be anything in the world, in the community, in the business, in our province.
Well, I think that we have a lot of bright minds around the table for our community and in our province. Not to say there aren't some challenges, which we know there are, but if we can come together on what we can agree on, of course, we don't agree on everything, but we've had a history of coming together on how we can make things better. We've got to stay true to that. Can't be always focusing on what separates us or how we're different. Let's figure out, we all have a common goal. I'm optimistic that we'll get there. We're in a great province. We have a lot of resources. We've had a lot of people, Adam, you know them better than I do, that have had a great vision for the province and they've given back a lot. So I'm encouraged by that. And I think there's some amazing young people coming up.
Yeah, there are. There they are.
They're bright. They want to have success. They're maybe working a little differently than maybe we're working, but they're working hard. They're working different. There's lots of ways to do this. And so let's be open-minded and let's embrace that. Yeah, I don't feel discouraged. I mean, it's hard work sometimes,
Yep.
but I'm very optimistic. And the other thing about Calgary is I think we've got to the point where we're past the critical mass where this diversification is really starting to take some hold. And it's taken a long time, but it's been people like, the Business Council of Alberta to keep banging on that drum. Look at the membership, what you guys have built. It's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that you've, really reached through all the corners of the province. That was important and beyond. So keep up your good work, and we need people to be in those roles.
Well, thank you, Cathy, and it's a pleasure to have you as amongst our roster of leaders as well. So thank you for your support since day one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Cathy, any advice for family-owned businesses? Anything from an operation or frankly succession and transition perspective?
I think for family business, I think it's just important that there's some really great things on family enterprise that, you have that built-in loyalty, but to keep challenging your family and bringing in other people that can help grow your business and stay true to your core business. And I guess for me, I have to say this because it's in my DNA, but just having that strong financial discipline in a family business. What's the saying? The founder builds it, the second generation manages it, and then, the third, isn't quite as strong. And
spends it or something
so
like
think,
that.
that takes, in Europe, they have, multi-generational family enterprise. And that's because they learned the discipline of what to do. And I hope that would be our legacy as well.
Yeah. Cathy, was there anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't talk about?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, Adam. I really appreciate it. Just feel really blessed to be in this community and, surrounded by such great leaders.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on the podcast and for your great real story of just growing up in the RGO environment and taking over the company, and your continued legacy that you're building off of Ross and investing in your people and in your community and your optimism for this place and this province. So thank you. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's an honor.
You've been listening to C-Suite Unplugged. As always, it's a privilege to spend some time with the leading executives of our membership. Thank you to our guests this month for sharing their journey and insights. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to review and share the podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time with more unfiltered leadership stories from the C-Suite.